You might be talking to someone right now who's saying, oh, well, we've got so-and-so over here in this development team. We've got this other consultant that helps us with this database piece of it here, and we want you to talk with them. So capturing that information, the time zones that they're in, and the preferred communication mechanisms for them, this is all going to be a key mechanism. And that brings me down to the final piece here. Cloudbart here. Welcome back to our look at the IT side gigs world. So far, in previous videos, you've heard me talking a little bit about the process of going out and discovering, making yourself available to find side gigs and build that network. Now that you've got that locked down, it's time to consider the logistical parts of interviewing, discovering requirements, and beginning to build that relationship with your new clients. This is an important part of the process, and it helps ensure that you get a good start, and then you establish a good path for you to move forward down the road. Keeping in mind, too, that as you do this discovery process, you're dipping into understanding what the business is doing and how you can further help them and help others in their industry as well. So I'm excited to share with you some of the logistics of reviewing and interviewing your new side client gigs. Stick with me. All right, fantastic. So you've got yourself a client. Woo! That's a good starting point. That's the beginning of the process here. And it's time then to begin the communications and understanding of the relationship and then drafting a proposal so that you can get down to actually executing against some objectives and some work to be done. Now, for me, one of the biggest things I try to encourage people to remember is that businesses appreciate a holistic approach to how technology can help them. Almost nobody out there is buying tools just because they like to own them. Instead, they're using them to solve business problems and probably above all else, drive value. So looking for ways that we can use technology to increase value for them. And typically this could mean improving efficiency, improving the quality of the services that they offer, improving the relationship that they can provide with their customers as well. And if you just focus on how to install tool A over here in system B, you might be missing the bigger picture part of it for me. So as you might imagine, they are going to be asking you questions. Okay, but you also have an opportunity here to gather a lot of information from them as well. So along your questioning there, really try to get an understanding of what the business does holistically. What industry are they a part of? What sort of services do they offer? And what sort of customers or clients do they regularly interface with? You might find that they're more business to business where they're providing services to other business partners, or it could be a customer relationship situation where they actually have people buying a product and consuming it directly, or some combination of those two across the board. The better understanding that you get of the industry, services, and clients, the better picture you have of where these tools can actually help. Keep in mind that you might be trying to get this one gig with them right now, but down the road, you could help advise or consult on other improvements that could help them along the way. So a couple of key things that I want to try to get you to focus on. The first one is gain an understanding. Okay, and I'm going to put the word holistic on here. So understand the industry that they're a part of. You heard me talk about the services that they offer. And then you also heard me talk about the customers that they might have available there as well. Once you get a picture of that, this helps feed into the types of work that you could do for them down the road, and of course helps improve your understanding of how these tools are driving business value for them. Don't be afraid to ask them exactly those questions right there. What are the most valuable processes for your team? What are the big deliverables that people expect of you? Is there some quality expectation around how they perform their jobs, or some regulatory expectations around it too? Keeping in mind that you might be working with a variety of different industries, especially when you get into nonprofits, they may have certain types of compliance or standards that they have to meet as a part of the work that they do. All of this is going to help shape your understanding. The next piece to keep in mind then is to fish out what sort of productivity systems they're using. And remember, these are just typical day-to-day business tools. How do we deal with email? How do we deal with communications? How do we deal with telephony? How do we deal with basic file management? What sort of hardware and systems are they physically using? And then what sort of network access are they typically expecting? Do they have one office in this one place downtown with one internet connection? Or are they a regional service where they've got offices around different towns or across different state borders, maybe even in different countries where they might be operating? Keep in mind that it's your chance right now, before you get into the proposal process, to gather as much information as possible to make yourself as valuable to them as possible. The final piece to kind of consider then is, of course, the big one at the end, which would be the technical services. So what tools do they identify as critical to their day-to-day business? This might have to do with more industrial interfacing. It might have to do with a specific database, a specific application. For a lot of companies, it's their customer relationship management systems like CRM, or their information base about their products and their services that they offer, that they spend a lot of time focusing on. Often, as you go through these questions, you'll find that they offer up a lot of information. So make sure that you're giving them a chance to respond. And of course, be sure to take notes. I'm going to write that up here. Take notes, because they're going to be offering that info. And you want to visibly be able to capture that information so that you can take it later on offline when you're done with the interview process, and then put that into writing proposals and also putting together general recommendations. And of course, building that holistic understanding down the road. Now, when I think about technical services, there's really three kind of key things. You heard me talk about unique tools that they might be using in their industry or their region or in the services that they provide. The next one are things that might be critical to operation. And of course, they'll often be able to identify that specific aspect of it. If this thing goes down, work can't get done in this way, and customers respond like this, those are all red flags, things for you to watch out for, especially since it helps you understand things like service windows, availability, and how you can kind of operate around those critical pieces of infrastructure. And then one of the final pieces that I try to get people to think about is the authorization and the authentication realms that they might be using. You might find an organization that just has a handful of laptops and they're just using Office 365, or you could be in a full-blown business that has domain infrastructure, data center services, other business providers and contractors that help work with them internally as well. Understanding how they deal with identifying who is allowed to work with and access certain pieces of information in their environment can get you a real big insight into how other technical services might come to exist and operate within their environment. All key information for helping you understand and write the right types of proposals later on. And then finally, once we get down to understanding all of this fun discovery of information, the final piece to keep in mind then is, what is the nature of the work to be done? And for me, I try to focus on a couple of key aspects here. So that would be work to be done. Now, they may have already made this very clear to you in your initial discussions, but if this is your chance to first start understanding what that work is, the more questions you ask, again, the better the proposal is that you can write. And of course, keep in mind too, that this may help you get a better understanding of how to effectively accomplish the tasks you're looking for. Now, as we start getting into the tasks of work to be done, there's four key things that I try to get people to think about. The first part is to kind of recognize transitions that have to be made. So if you're migrating from a system, if you're adding a new system to an environment, there's always going to be some sort of point of transition. They may have this in mind. You're trying to understand when that might happen, some of the impacts that they're concerned about, and of course, building an understanding of how you can help make that transition smooth, effective, and above all else, improve business value, and try to look for ways to make sure that you definitely don't reduce business value as a part of that process. Other key things to consider then are milestones. So if they've identified some key pieces that they recognize as needing to implement, you could begin putting in your head, okay, I'm going to need to implement authentication ties over here. I'm going to need to deploy this particular system first. And then once that's done, we're going to need to do some validation testing as a part of it. Once that's implemented, then we can go through and have some of the customers do some acceptance testing against it. Keep in mind, you don't need to have a clear understanding of this 100% yet, but try to begin thinking as they answer questions about the work to be done, what milestones make sense to you to try to set this up later on. Because when you go to write your proposal, it's often very good to consider how the timeline might work. And along those lines as well, consider things like deliverables. If there's some specific thing that they want you to have installed or some specific objective that they're looking to accomplish there, often the deliverables are tied directly back to the milestones themselves. And guess what, friends? Once you get into this process here, you're doing full-on project management. And that's exactly where some special tools out there in the project management world might begin helping you. Getting an understanding of the complexity of the work to be done, the timelines, and the things that they're going to expect you to deliver back to them are going to be crucial to helping write the right proposal, and then, of course, execute successfully against this. Keeping in mind, too, here that when you're doing this discovery process, it's an important chance to set expectations on how you want that relationship to work. Which brings me down to the next one here. Who are your points of contact? So if there's a specific person that you're going to be working with on this, and it's not the person, oops, let me fix that there, your points of contact, if it's not the person that you're actively interviewing, gather that information. See if you can call them in or when you could begin the process of talking to them a little bit more. Often there's going to be an escalation process through other team members. You might be talking to someone right now who's saying, oh, well, we've got so-and-so over here in this development team. We've got this other consultant that helps us with this database piece of it here, and we want you to talk with them. So capturing that information, the time zones that they're in, and the preferred communication mechanisms for them, this is all going to be a key mechanism. And that brings me down to the final piece here is how are you going to interface with the customer and any of the tools that they might be providing for you? If you're going to physically be on site, that's a great understanding. Understand the physical locations that you might be visiting. If you're going to be working with remote employees, gather information about the tools that they like to use. Are they using Skype? Are they using Slack? Are they using Messenger? Are they using Google Hangouts? What tools are they doing to actually work day to day? And how can you easily integrate your process in so that you're able to use, really kind of meet them in the middle on their communications medium? Along those lines, you might find that they're using Google Business or Office 365 as their communication suite. Just getting a glimpse into those pieces will help you understand a lot of expectations around how that interfacing is going to work. And this brings me down to the last part. As a part of interfacing, consider the authorization or access mechanisms that might exist. If you're working remotely and you need to access their systems, they may be building you credentials. They could be giving you login accounts. They might be setting up some sort of a VPN access. Maybe there's even a hardware component that goes into it. This final piece is your chance to understand some of the technical limitations and opportunities that exist around enabling them. And of course, as you might imagine here, capture notes, and again, look for ways that you could possibly improve value. Often as I go through these deliverables, milestones, contact, and then the interfacing parts of it, I discover even more information and potential problems / opportunities that I could help them out with later on. And that's a big part of it because a lot of organizations, again, they don't know what they need and they're looking to you as a professional to help understand what that is and also to help them evaluate what best practices are down the road. They are trying to solve business problems, and your value proposition might be that you can help them understand how to more effectively do that with a different tool or a different way of implementing it. So just to kind of recap here, friends, as you begin moving out of finding clients and begin working directly with them to discover information, this is your chance to ask a lot of questions, capture notes, all of which are going to help feed your ability to drive those proposals later on. Remember to understand them holistically as a business, not just the technical problems that they have. What industry, service, and customers do they use? What technical tools are they readily expecting to be delivering right now? And of course, what sort of things are critical to the operation? One of the final things then is to consider the work to be done and gather the right information about that. What transitions are going to be happening? What sort of milestones and deliverables might be good ways of indicating progress through the effort? And then, of course, identify key points of contact and administrative interfacing elements so that you can get the work done itself. Beyond that, now that you've got an understanding of all this information, capture it, take it offline, and it's time to start writing a proposal, which is something that we'll be covering more in a future CloudBart lesson. See you in the cloud.